We're 5 mythical immortal players with over 40,000 matches of experience, and today we will show you the official solo queue tier list for high ranks. Of course, the tier list isn't specifically telling you pick this hero for a guaranteed win. It is just a way to rank which heroes are generally performing better in the current meta than others. Without further ado, let's start with the junglers. First, what makes a strong jungler even strong? You need to know why certain heroes are good, because otherwise you can't use them to their fullest potential. A good jungler should have a decent clearing speed to rotate, and they should be able to secure objectives, especially the turtle and lord and the turrets. They should also be able to help in ganks whenever the team needs them, and in higher ranks they should also be able to fend off invasions on their own. The top tier junglers hasn't really been changed much. Fanny is arguably still the best jungler right now, may it be in solo queue or even in 5-man teams. Her unrivaled mobility and speed makes her always a special hero, especially if we're talking about the sweaty try-hard to play Mobile Legends 30 hours a day. Next we have our e-boy Ling. As we predicted in our patch analyze video, the nerf hasn't really affected his performance, though you may feel the slower attack speed and lower crit chance. I think it's just fair on how quickly he rose up the ranks. And Martis is just Martis. I think by now you already know why he's OP. So let's move on to the A and B tier. You may be wondering why Alpha is no longer a S tier hero. It is true that he is still really strong right now, but the nerf on his damage is actually noticeable. Not to mention the lower heal you get in the early game from a second skill. He is obviously still very strong, but not really OP enough anymore to be considered as an S tier hero. At least you can pick him now regularly. Other than that, the A tier is pretty much the same as it was before. Lancelot is still being used by top players if Ling and Fanny were either banned or picked, and the other assassins like Hayabusa and Halkert are also in the same boat. Tank junglers are also still viable like Fredrin and Basha. I heard a lot of your comments about Basha, and yep, you know what? Lol, just kidding, he still belongs in the F tier and you guys have no idea about ML. Blah. Just kidding. With the rise of sustain and healing heroes, he has found his place in the current meta again as a direct counter. You could argue maybe to put him into the C tier as a situational pick, but after discussing it, we decided to put him into the B tier and give him this extra spotlight. As new entries, we have Alus, who's still underrated after his recent buff, and you should definitely try him out as he's a really good option right now, especially if you're still in a lower rank. Natalia also performs better after the recent patch. Now we move on to the C to F tier. On the C tier we have a couple of heroes who fell down from the B tier, namely Benedetta, Julian, Eamon and Barats, as they are simply not performing as well in the current sustain meter. On the D tier we have Freya now, who got a pretty nasty and unnecessary nerf, Aldok, who got a buff for the XP lane but a nerf for any other role, and Thamus, who's just performing worse than other C tier heroes currently. On the bottom we see familiar faces. Zilong needs way too long to scale and doesn't have any kind of impact in the game unless he rushes through the enemy's lines after they killed all of his allies. And Hylos, who was an okay jungler before, just suffered a lot from the tank meta nerf. He will probably be removed from the next tier list entirely. By the way, any hero who you can't see on the list counts as an F tier hero. By the way, did you already re-download Mobile Legends with the update so you can get up to 20% more diamonds? No? Well, then do it right after watching this whole video so you can save a ton of money on your favorite skins. It just takes 2 minutes and it's 100% safe, as I already used it many times myself. Check the description or the pinned comment for the detailed tutorial. Now let's move on to the XP lane. Let's again start with what a good XP laner needs to be good. They should be able to keep their lane safe or even be able to win the lane against their opponents, and they should be there at turtle fights to cause immense pressure. They should also be able to clear the wave quickly or even cut the lane so they are able to rotate when necessary. Joy and Uranus are still on the top of the list as they weren't really affected affected by any adjustments. 𝐼𝐼𝐧, however, received a nerf that really affected him, but not enough to remove him from the S tier. Like I said in our patch note analyze video, he will probably receive 5 more nerfs and slid down the card slowly, just like 1-1 did. Spoiler alert for the gold lane list. As a new entry, we have Edith, who is being picked much more often. Her great tankiness, CC, and insane damage really puts her in the spotlight. Although you can argue that she sits between the A and S tier, as she's not exactly on the same level as the other 3, she still beats most of the other A tier heroes with ease, so it's more accurate to put her on the S tier. There are some other XP laners who are basically in the same situation as her, as they also could be considered as an S tier hero, but in the end just made it to the A tier. 𝐷𝐻𝐽 is the primary example for this. The buffs he got really helped his performance, and he is actually a bit underrated at this moment, but he's not on the exact same level as the other S tier heroes, which is why he is only an A tier hero. Another hero who you could put in the S tier is Terizla. He is a beast both during the laning phase and in team fights, but he just fall offs really hard in the late game, and he can be countered with HP based damage and really sticky slows. So if you wanna use him, you better start praying that you will be able to finish the game really fast. On the B tier we have some fallen brothers and sisters. Arthur got downgraded because of his nerfs. Benedetta and Glue fell a tier as they simply can't keep up anymore with the A tier heroes. And Freya also took a nosedive into the B tier. Now I know there are also those who claim Freya is still OP AF, so go ahead and write your comment. As mentioned already in the jungle list, the nerf was unnecessary, as it's pretty easy to kite her, and the nerf on her second gave her much less room for arrows. Now on to the low tiers. Despite receiving buff to improve their laning capability, Aldous and Alus are still on the lower end of the spectrum. Why is that? Well, if you look closely on the lower tiers, most of them are late game heroes. And for an XP laner, this is a crucial flaw. As the turtle is even more important as it gives more XP for the entire team, the XP laner's presence should be very strong in the early game already. So having a scaling late game hero can become a big issue for your team. On the F tier we have a couple of heroes who just have a big problem with their kit. About Kato-Kacha's ult we made enough jokes in the last tier list already, so I spare him this time. Sylvana's kit is just lacking to be a proper XP laner. Alufeed is a late game hero whose kit is not really made for the XP lane anyway, which is why despite being a fighter he should only be used in the jungle. And Barats is the slowest MFer in the game who can't do anything but defend his turret. Let's move on to the gold lane. A good gold laner must have the following attributes. If you play a marksman, they need to deal a nice amount of damage while being able to stay safe on their own throughout the whole match. If you play another hero, they are mostly there to keep the enemy's marksman as low as possible or have huge late game potential themselves. Our dear marksmen are the ones who have benefited the most from the new adjustments on the crit items, but the S tier heroes still are the same. The only affected hero will be Beatrix, as she can't benefit as much anymore from Hearth's Claws. But that doesn't downgrade her a tier. On the A and B tier though, we have quite some changes. The ones closest to the S tier are Bruno, Clint and Irithyll. This is because of the crit items adjustments, which buffed their overall performance. Bruno and Clint are now able to stack their crit while having a high attack at the same time, and Irithyll's tailor-made item, the Great Dragon Spear, gives her more movement speed during her ult. Hearth's Claws is also a great first item for Irithyll, which makes her much more viable in the early game now. The same can't be said for Melissa and my beloved 1-1. While they're still viable, they are really hard to use right now against other meta marksmen. Heck, even Hanabi can match up against both during the laning phase. It really pains me having to put my main down here into the B tier. But as I still stand to my decision that 1-1 was the sole S tier hero before, where people told me I'm just biased towards my main, I also stand to my decision putting her into the B tier when there is no argument for her to be in the A tier anymore. Now looking at the lower tiers, I want to point out the worst gold lane marksman in particular who seriously needs some love for Moonton. Popol and his Dowgi. Well, worst gold lane MM aside from 𝐉𝐭 and Granger, as they're supposed to be played in the jungle anyway. Popo lacks the damage that is needed to carry the game, he lacks the mobility to probably get away from any danger, and the AI from his Taugi is just absolutely garbage. I think at this point it would be good if he receives a revamp with a proper Taugi AI so he can become a useful marksman again. Next we have the mid lane. A good mid laner is usually a mage who can support their team in all situations, whether in ganks, objective fights, or ambushes. They need to be a pain in the A for the enemy squishies, and someone who can clear minion waves fast so they are not stuck on the lane. Novaria and Eve are still at the very top of the list. Novaria haven't received any nerfs, making her still reign as one of the best mid laners right now, and despite Eve's big nerf, she's still an SD hero. Though one more nerf will probably drop her down into the A tier. At least she's not getting banned as much compared to before, so you can spam her if you like. But there are also other really good mages that honestly can be considered as an SD hero as well. Valia has been a great alternative to Eve, as he can deal great damage against high HP enemies, but what sets him really apart from Eve is that he has a knockback skill, which is very useful against diving heroes, so mainly assassins. Another great mage is Kadita. Though she's more used as a roamer, she's still very good as a mid laner, as she can gain her items easier to burst down her targets. Her ability to counter almost every good mid laner is exceptional. A notable change is Odette, who is considered a B tier hero now. Her ability to make 2 dashes while ulting using flicker, paired with her immunity against many CC effects, makes it very hard to stop her. In a teamfight oriented team, she excels, and I wouldn't be surprised if her popularity becomes much higher in the next weeks. Now for the lower ranks. Although Aldog mid was a viable option before to stack up your stacks much quicker, it is now not an option anymore, as he can gain stacks much faster on the XP lane now, as siege minions give him extra stacks. So he will be removed from the list entirely after this video, as you should never use him here anymore. Why Selena, Aurora and God are clown heroes on the mid we already explained multiple times, and why Lilia's buff was actually a nerf we also explained already in the patch notes analyze video. Now many of you may wonder why Lu Yi is only a CT hero. As the tier states, there are solid or situational picks which perfectly fits for Lu Yi. If the enemy has a team fight comp that sticks together, she is an extremely good mage against them. But if the enemy uses a pick-off comp where you meet many lonely wolves and burst heroes, she's as useful as a hedgehog in the condom factory. That's why she is a CT hero, as she is a situational pick. By the way, the gold is still an FD hero. It's just a continuation of the running gag of him being a clown hero. He was even used in the pro scene recently, so there's no way that he is still an ST hero. FD hero. God, I can't speak anymore. He is a BT hero now. Let's move on to the roamers. A good roamer is either a tank that has good sustain, who has the ability to give vision to gain map control, and peeling is another big thing for roamers. Peeling means you try anything you can to protect your ADCs. For example, checking bushes, staying in front of them, using all your abilities you can to protect your allies from diving enemies, etc. It can also be a support hero who brings different abilities to the table, like special skills that counters the enemies or buffs to your allies. Let's start with the A-listers first. There are actually many good options on the S tier, which I love, as there are multiple ways to victory. Florin has been dominating the support role, so there's no surprise she is here. Franco is so deadly with his hooking ability, which can destroy a single enemy entirely. Plus his easy to trigger suppression skill counters basically every enemy. And Kufra is the greatest teamfight tank with his long engage, devastating ult, and ability to counter all those dashing rats with his balls. As a new addition, we have Kadita, who is the best damage roamer. Her kit works perfectly together with Dire Hit, while she can also provide a long AF knockup which counters many heroes. Now if we look at the A tier, we see that Minzeta fell down a tier. Why is that? Well, Minzeta is still really good and his ult is insane against any dash heroes, but his other skills are just kind of mediocre and can't keep up with the other S tier heroes. That's why he is only an A tier hero, which is still very good of course. Other than that, we have quite many support heroes on the list, as Angela, Estes and Digi work very good right now. Damage roamers are more niche and work exceptionally well if the other roles have sustain heroes. Natalia comes close to second due to the adjustment she received. Though her invisibility may be butchered, her damage cannot be underestimated now, as a full combo is devastating for any squishy enemy. Another roamer who needs to be put in the spotlight is Saber. There is a simple reason why he is extremely good as a roamer right now. He can counter all those pesky jungle assassins. Whether it's Fanny, Hayabusa, Ling, Halcott or Lancelot, as soon as they stick their head out, Saber can just slash them away and make them useless AF. We want to use them as a roamer because like this you can keep the jungler spot open for one of the mentioned assassins so they have a much easier time, or for a sustained jungler as you as Roam Saber obviously don't provide any sustain. Now Atlas and Mino have always been great setter tanks, so why do we see them just as B tier roamers then? There is no doubt that Atlas is the best setter tank, followed by Mino who come close in second. The thing is, we're talking about high ranks today. Even if you ban Digi to pick a set tank, people in high elo have the instinct to avoid grouping together when they see someone like Atlas. Or they are smart enough to equip Purify to completely nullify their CC effects. Plus in solo queue communication is much harder, which is why many sets will be wasted. Now the low tier roamers are pretty much the same as before, so make sure to re-download Mobile Legends with Aptoid right now and then watch this video where we explain why you should never use the major marksman emblem. See you over there!